A bipartisan group of legislators are leading an effort on Capitol Hill to try and address shortfalls in several government trust funds. For more on this, let's welcome Senator Mitt Romney of Utah and Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. They are both co-sponsors of the Trust Act. And Senators, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
First of all, it's nice to see a little bit of bipartisanship on Capitol Hill today. I'm imagining you don't see too much of that. What led you to work together with other Republicans and Democrats to come up with this, and what is this legislation?
Well, let me just say, as former governors, we had to work every day with the budget. We had to make sure that we balanced our budget. Our financial people would come to us on a weekly or daily basis, depending on what the crisis was, and make adjustments. We don't see any of that concern here. And so in the last Budget Act that we just voted on, which we voted against, both of us did, but we had 4 governors, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, said, we can do better than this. We need to sit down and face our problems and face the future, because what we're passing on to our children is unsustainable.
Yeah, actually, what you have is a setting where we have a series of trust funds, and the funding for these trust funds take up about 2/3 of all federal spending. So if you ever want to see a balanced budget, if you ever want to get out of debt, you have to deal with these trust funds. And another problem is they all run out of money within 13 years. So if you want to save Social Security, Medicare, the Highway Trust Fund, and the other trust funds, you want to save those programs and save those trust funds from financial ruin, well, you have to make adjustments now. And so what Joe and I have come together on is saying, look, let's put together a rescue committee for each one of the trust funds, the 5 trust funds, and find a way to get them in balance over a 75-year period.
And it's going to take a bipartisan effort, too, because we're going to invoke the 60 rule, which takes a majority of senators working in a bipartisan way to understand that we need to do something and do it as quickly as possible. Social Security will make it to 2032, 2035, maybe before it starts being depleted, and people will be cut automatically 20, 30% or more. But then you have Medicare, which is going to run out of funds by 2026, and the trust fund. So something needs to be done. This is not that far away, and we're in serious problems if we don't, and we're accumulating more debt than ever before since the World War II.
It's been 10 years since Simpson-Bowles, almost 10 years since Simpson-Bowles was put together. Am I wrong to think that this sounds very much like a similar sort of effort?
It is, in many respects, it has the same aim, which is to bring fiscal sanity to Washington and to begin to make some changes now so that we don't have to cut programs down the road. But the difference between this and Simpson-Bowles, perhaps, is that, one, we go automatically to a vote, all right? This doesn't have to go through a process that keeps it from getting to the floor. And number 2, instead of taking out all of these trust funds in one single task force, instead this bipartisan, bicameral effort is going to be divided between each one of the 5 trust funds. So one group looking at Social Security, another committee looking at Medicare, another looking at the Highway Trust Fund, another looking at the Pension Guarantee Trust Fund. So all of these are looked at individually, and then if the group can come together on a bipartisan basis, it comes on a privileged basis to the floor for a vote. We think on that basis we're going to be able to tackle some of these long-term problems that we've been facing.
When I first got to the Senate, Bowles-Simpson was bold and large, if you will, and I liked it. I liked the process. When you look back at Erskine-Bowles in 1997, when he put together a budget within John Kasich, they were able to balance the budget and have surpluses for 4 years in a row from 97 to 2001. So these people, I thought, they have a grasp of this. And we looked at it. It was tough, but it was the right thing at that time.
Why, though, does it seem like fiscal sanity is so out of vogue in Washington right now? Both on the Democratic side, there seems to be an effort to spend money that we don't have. And frankly, on the Republican side, there seems to be an effort to spend money that we don't have. And we're seeing it in terms of the deficits, which you're so aware of.
Yeah, I can see we're out of vogue, all right? The 2 of us are out of vogue.
Yeah, we're not going to be in the magazine anytime soon.
But you recognize that Todd Young, who's a member of leadership on the Republican side, is also an original co-sponsor of this. Kyrsten Sinema. I mean, we got a good group of folks that have signed on and said, look, we've got to tackle this kind of problem on a bipartisan basis. We're not saying what the answer is. We're not telling them what they have to come to. We're saying this is a process to finally save Social Security, not just for current retirees, but for the coming generations. And the same thing with Medicare, the Highway Trust Fund. We've got to tackle these issues.
And here's the sad. We have a lively campaign going on right now for the highest office in the land, the President of the United States, 2020 election. You haven't heard one candidate, not one candidate, speak about the financial conditions, the deficits that we're incurring, and basically what we're passing on to the future generations, and the trust funds being in jeopardy, in dire jeopardy. You're not hearing one person talk, and on top of that, I'm not hearing the media ask one question concerning what is your position on the financial conditions of our country. No one seems to care. And so when Mitt and I got together on this, I thought it was a great idea and a great thing for former governors to take on, because we have had to be responsible.
Senators, we care here.
Yeah, you just got asked a question by the great Andrew Ross Sorkin.
No, we care here. I don't know if the rest of the country cares.
But don't take that offensive.
But we're not running for president. That's the difference.
Well, what I was going to ask you is a separate question, which is because both of you are in the Senate, where you really stand on this impeachment issue at this very moment. And I'll start with Senator Romney. What's your official position at this point?
Well, I'm probably going to become a juror, if you will, in this process. And as a result of that, I'm doing my very best to keep an open mind. And I'm going to wait to make any comments on evidence until we see all the evidence, all the facts are laid out.
What do you make about what do you make about your peers? We've had many of your peers, especially in the Republican Party, where we've asked this question, and they say they could not vote for impeachment. And most of them, it sounds like, don't even want to see the evidence, frankly.
Well, I want to see the facts, and everybody makes their own decision. I respect my colleagues, and they have the capacity to make their own decisions. But in my view, it's time for me to stay silent on impeachment until the process is complete. If articles of impeachment come, I'll review the facts in depth before I make my decision.
Senator, with what you know now in terms of what does go to the level of an impeachable offense, would if it was an implied quid pro quo trying to have Ukraine investigate Joe Biden, does that rise to the level of an impeachable offense in your view right now, Senator Romney?
Yeah, for me to respond to that would violate what I just said, which is I'm going to keep a completely open mind until we get all the facts in, and then I'll make that judgment.
Oh, okay.
Good answer.
You second that? You second that
motion,
I do.
Senator Manchin? Yeah, I think that basically people are wanting, some of our colleagues on the Senate have jumped in and had a resolution, our dear friend Lindsey Graham, which we think the world of and respect. But basically, it's not our job to tell the House how to do their job.
But Senator,
and the Constitution is very clear. Let them do what they're going to do. Let us see the evidence. We're going to be the jurors. So when we see this evidence, they have articles of impeachment, whether it's one article or more than one, they better have the evidence that goes with it. And if they don't, and if it's not conclusive, then it's going to be hard for anybody to vote.
Senator Manchin, from where, from your home state, and there are times where you're not in lockstep with the Democratic Party, is it possible you would vote
quite often?
Quite often. Is it possible they'd need you in addition to 20 Republicans?
Well, I'm not going to be counting from the standpoint what count you're in. Is your vote make a difference? I've never looked at my vote in that manner. I've always looked at my vote based on, could I go home and explain it? Does it make sense? Is the evidence there conclusive? And I want to make sure that I make the right decision with the evidence I have before me, and I'm waiting to see it also. So I'm not jumping. People are making assumptions, whether they like or don't like the president. They're coming to conclusions before they've seen anything because they don't want to either go through an impeachment trial or whatever. This is not easy stuff, and it's very difficult for our country to be going through it. But if you're going to preserve the democracy that we have, the Constitution, if you believe in that and the rule of law, then this is the process.
Senators, thank you for being with us this morning. Appreciate it very, very much.